very active member of our community, will be facilitating today's session. The topic today is very timely. It's about building resilience in times of crisis, and if you live on Earth, you pretty much know what's going on in the world, and we cannot just keep ignoring what's happening because it's not hitting us directly right now, but we should be prepared for what's coming. We will have, usually we have breakout rooms, we get to know one another. We will do that in breakout rooms, and you'll be able to share your contact details, make new connections also, while we're keeping it as a networking session. But I will hand it over to Gabriele. Before that, I just want to say hi to Erica. Welcome, Erica. Johanna, good to see you. And Paras, like I was saying, this is an unconventional networking session today. So it's different from what you guys are used to. And yeah, we're always welcome to test out new concepts and new formats in our sessions. So Gabriele, I'll hand it to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, thank you very much, Safa, and thank you everybody for joining today's session. We were discussing over the weekend, and we thought, okay, we want to do a session, but we want to make something that is a little bit more interesting, timely, appropriate, and also like to the point of what we are experiencing, as a humanity, I would say, these days. And then as I was getting the slides and some thoughts together, I started to think, okay, who is going to join, who is going to benefit from this session, and what experiences, what thought processes, what views, what perspectives we can share that can be interesting. And I think it would be very nice. I prepared some very interesting slides with stuff that everybody knows, but put them together in the right order. And what I'd like you to do is that we talk a little bit, and then we have an open discussion, perhaps in some breakout rooms, right, Safa, given the number of people, to get everybody views, right? Because there is a level of complexity going on worldwide that it's difficult. So the more ideas we get from each other, I think the better is for everybody. Now, let me first of all share. Can you see my screen? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Now I think it's better. Okay, right. So first of all, building resilience in times of crisis, okay, by Gabriele Ostuni, which is myself. And Safa asked, okay, can you put an introduction about yourself? And the first thing I wanted to do was to avoid to frame myself as my professional persona, because that is the first step to build the resilience. Many of us have this we've been sort of indoctrinated to have this direct connection about our jobs, or our professional role and ourselves, which is completely artificial. It doesn't exist. It's not real. But that's the first big limitation that we need to mentally overcome to start and see the different opportunities that come from a crisis. So in my case, I put a consciousness, an analytical person, and a Southern Italian, because I would say these are the three main defining characteristics when I think about myself. So what's this? First of all, first question, who recognizes this picture? Let's see. Does anybody recognizes this picture? What's this? Feel free to raise your hand or just say it.
Probably neurons, right?
Okay, next one.
Amanda?
I was going to say neurons too, so.
Yes.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Next one.
Cells.
Cells, okay. Next one. Morning knows. I think that morning knows. Okay, so this picture is a picture that is now already 20 years old, and it's a simulation that was done by some German scientists in the years 2000 by taking into account the laws of physics, all the available information from astronomical observation. And this is an image of the large-scale structure of the universe, okay? So there is an image that was created, and this is the large-scale structure of the universe. And this represents like 1% of the universe. And they saw, okay, if we look at galaxies and stars and, empty space and all of that, this is what comes out. So if you were to zoom out as much as you can, this is how the universe looks like, okay? Now, it's very interesting that some of you say the neurons or cells, right? Because this is the first very important concept. When you zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, something that doesn't look really what it is, it starts to become clearer. We are not saying that these are neurons, these are just galaxies and, clusters of galaxies. But I think you see where this is going, right? This is when you zoom out, you start to see things on a different perspective. Now, next slide is very interesting. So the structure of reality. Now, obviously, I know that all of you have gone to school, so probably you know this. But what we can see is that matter is made of molecules, atoms, nucleus, protons, quarks. And according to science, there is a limit to how small reality can be, okay? But it's just a theory, You could assume that you can always find something smaller. There are things like Planck's constant, which is the smallest possible amount of space that you can have. But in reality, I go always for something smaller. At the same time, you can also think about reality going upwards. So from matter to Earth, solar system, the Milky Way, which is our own galaxies. You then get a cluster of galaxies. You get then superclusters, which are a masses of many galaxies, and then you get the observable universe. So we are sort of in between these two scales. There is a maximum amount of things that we can see going down, so when we zoom in, and there is a maximum amount of things that we can observe when we zoom out. And obviously, this is the observable universe, but there is a very interesting theory, which is the multiverse, which basically says you've had a Big Bang here, a Big Bang there, a Big Bang there, and so on. So I wanted to put this Leonardo image in the center, just to prove the concept that we can zoom out. Basically, you can look at larger and larger and larger structures at the infinite. It wouldn't make sense to think that there is a limit to how much you can zoom out. But you also can zoom in at infinitum, okay? And we sort of sit in the middle, doesn't matter where we really are, because there should be no limits in how much you can zoom in and zoom out, okay? First question for you, and I would like you to have, we can do into a breakout room. Can our finite mind understand an infinite reality? Because we can zoom in as much as we want, we can zoom out as much as we want. So the first thing to build resilience in the crisis is to answer this question. Safa, can we organize these breakout rooms?
All right. How much time shall we give everyone? And
I would say 4 minutes.
4 minutes. And you guys have any
Yeah.
questions before you get into breakout rooms? Or no? Okay. All right, let's do that. Gabriele, I'm getting a bit of an echo. from
Echo.
your mic.
Ooh, why is that?
I didn't notice it, but when you kept talking, I felt it was a bit annoying.
This one is better.
Just keep talking. Sorry.
If I'm talking all the time like this, is this better?
Can you put back the other one to see the difference?
I think it was getting the input from the camera. Now, in this way, is it better or worse? Let
I
me
mean,
try.
the one you had earlier was super annoying.
This one, I think that if I talk like this, is it better?
Yeah, just keep it. If I like during the call, if I tell you that the thing is not good, let me see. Can you
Let me try. Let me see if I can get.
because it got annoying when you talked for a while, but at the beginning I couldn't notice it.
Okay, let me try this.
So Stefano was here and then he left.
Is this one better with this microphone? Like if I'm talking with this microphone, is it clearer?
No. No.
Okay, then we will have to use the default microphone, which is this.
All right. It's not very clean.
How can we do this? Let me try. Interesting, because I've just had the video. Okay. Let me see if I'm some microphone settings. What do you hear exactly?
No, this is bad. This is bad. Okay, they're coming back in 1 minute.
This one, is this one better?
Maybe, I don't know.
This is a little bit of a problem.
Yeah, let's
Do you feel an echo?
not right now. Hi, Parath. Everyone is in the breakout room, so they'll be back in less than 30 seconds now. So just stay with us. You're enjoying the weather. It's beautiful outside. I can't hear you though. You're muted.
Yeah, I just came to park with my son. He wants to enjoy the sun. That's why.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
why.
You're right to do so because staying indoors in such a weather is not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but that's good. That's good. I know Gabriele, he goes out on a walk even when it rains and when it's cold.
Yeah, yeah.
I can never do that.
So how much we get a sun, we need to take that opportunity.
Exactly. It's
Indeed.
so rare in
Yeah.
Paris to have such a clear blue sky. Look at you,
Yes,
like the
absolutely.
background, blue sky.
Yeah. I just stay next to this park, this my building, so it's better
Oh,
for me.
oh, that's
Yeah,
cool. Amazing.
it's better for me.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm not sure if you had time to really give everyone the opportunity to speak, but Gabriele?
So who wants to go? We get 2 people to answer these questions. I'm interested.
Yeah, I'll go. My name is Morris the Connector.
Hi.
I don't know many of you. I know a few people on here haven't been on here for a while, but I just want to give from my. I think life is about perceptions, and like I said in my group, where I came from of being leading a life of crime, and my surroundings, and my awareness and everything where I grew up that's who I was. That's who I thought I needed to be. But now going through my adversity that introduced me to myself made me realize and visualize myself as someone else, connected to the source of God, universe, whatever. But my belief system, going through the pain, has made me realize certain aspects of myself, that I am greater within me, not out of me. So my connection with the world is no longer, materialistic. My connection is with myself, so the understanding I get and you get will be totally different. But I believe I am who I say I am. You know what I mean? That person of love and gratitude towards everything that I'm going to give to the world. Yeah. So I believe it's about you, what's in you, that makes you be you. Yeah. That's what
Someone else wants to go very quickly?
Sure. And in our group, I mean, basically the feeling was we didn't, in answer to the question, was we didn't know, we didn't really care, because we're there's a lot to deal with here, and people are trying to know themselves and just deal with practicalities of life.
Very nice, very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a very, very insightful. Now we go on with our history lessons. So again, this is a very interesting. Can you see the screen? Yeah. Very interesting timeline. These are billions of years, like not millions, billions of years. This formation of Earth, 4.5, and the human history is this really small white dot here. So we can see that whatever we think is our human experience is very small. And if you look at that very small dot and you make it into this very interesting scale, which 3 millions is a massive amount of time, so it's not in proportion. Okay, we got the French Revolution because Safa is in France. But basically our history, our modern history, and whatever we are thinking, it's extremely important today. In reality, when you put into perspective of this, does not make really any sense, but the relative importance really goes to almost zero of anything. If you look in very, very absolute terms, if you look where we are in the universe, how much of our time, how much of our experience represents the human experience, and these years, like what is their importance, in reality is all very, 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 very relative. Okay, that does not mean that is not important or there is no significance, but it means that, and this leads to the second question. When you ask a question, what is the importance of any specific historical or political event in our lifetime, can be very, very important for us, as it was very, very important for many people what was going on in their life 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago. But in the great scheme of things, everything needs to be put in the right category. And that's the second step to build resilience, because if you look at the world today, you might feel overwhelmed and think, oh, everything is so difficult to manage. But when you really look at things in context, you see that it's just another step in human history. So now many of you, what is the global context today? The global context is that we got internet, globalization, and traditional values that are all clashing together. Perhaps for some people, for some of us that are more international, this is a process where we went through when we were younger. But for many people, this is really getting a clashing of ideas and thoughts and perceptions and values. We got population growth and living standards that are growing. We got a massive strain on natural resources, and we got centralization of power, superpower, and the emergence of the multipolar world. And this is what French philosopher described as the polycrisis, like what we are living now. You could look at everything like collapsing, but again, it's just an infinitesimal part of the reality and of human history and of history as a whole. So what I want to do is, now that we put everything in context, right? So our history is very small. Our space in the universe is infinitesimally small. And all these crises are very small. Now, what I want you to discuss very quickly, like 3 minutes, 4 minutes in the breakout room, is how worried should you be about these crises? And does it really matter to you that this crisis is happening? Should you be so worried that you get stuck, or should you relativize everything and then decide what actions to take? So please, let's discuss this.
Shall we have like a global discussion, or do you want breakout rooms? What do you guys think?
I think perhaps global discussion would be good.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. So Hanan is nodding. Maybe you want to go ahead first.
Yes, I wanted to raise my hand.
Good.
So,
I sensed it.
about being worried, no, I'm not worried, because I am asking questions. I'm following what has been happening for decades. I'm digging. I don't feel that I am privileged, or I am privileged, and this means that I am responsible because I have some advantages that other people do not have. Hence, this means that I have to do my due diligence and to do the actions that are in my hands. So I'm not worried. I'm doing my job. I'm doing my job. I ask what to do, and I'm trying to inform people and inviting them to do what we all can do, just to take the power from those in power who are creating all of those wars and killing and genocides. And if you are really digging in what's happening, you can see what is to come next. The universal digital citizenship, where we are controlled to be slaves, literally slaves. So it's on us. Either we decide to stop being indifferent and to do our work, or we will be slaves. At least I am free. I believe that I'm free from my inside. I'm not talking about being free to travel, or being free to wear a scarf or not. This is not about freedom. It's about true freedom, which comes from my inside. So even if we all become slaves, I will be free because I did everything that I can. So this is what came to my mind.
Thank you very much, Annan. And something comes to mind. There was a guy who said that between stimulus and response, there is a space. So we can either be like the frog that get an electric, current and jumps, or we can decide what to do with all these stimuli that we get and think, pause, and act accordingly. Morris, I saw your hand is, yeah.
Yes, I love this subject because, like I speak about his perspective and coming from where I come from, in being controlled as a youth, growing up in London, being told at school that I'll be nothing in life, and then losing my confidence, my belief in everything that I was doing outside when I left school. The most important time is school time when you're growing, and when you got people putting you down all the time and telling you you're worthless, that becomes your reality, And leaving school, and I had to form my own reality, not in a good way, but when I look back, I believe it was in God's way. And just like the Queen said earlier, life is about self-discovery, discovering yourself, and we're all going to go through some pain, but it's what we become through that pain and realizing and understanding from our perspective and the way we see the world in how we're going to react, because with every fault, there's an outcome. My outcome 35 years ago was different from now, but I would say losing 2 sons, going through my pain, I would say it was growing pains. I believe God was chipping away at me, scolding me, molding me to be this person that can say to every one of you that it's about perspectives. What you believe, that's what you'll become. So if you believe in the world, you'll become of the world. You know, just like the Queen said, the things that are going on in the world, it doesn't bother me. I'm no longer connected to that. I'm mindful of that. I'm just doing the best I can. Like they say, be the one that you want to see in the world, the greatness that you want to see in the world. Be that person and create something. Like I would say, we're all creators of our own story. You could play the victim or the hero. I used to play the victim. Now I'm the hero. I'm going to schools. I'm teaching the kids to be leaders instead of followers. We need to be leaders of our own story and get to grips that and believe that we are somebody of purpose with that gift, with that kingship, with that queenship, because we're kings and queens. We're here to lead. And
Right.
that's from my perspective. I believe we are somebody that has a gift that becomes our purpose, but we need to dig deep in ourselves and take the mess and take the message, which I done. I took the mess and took my message to give around the world now.
Maurice, we
Mhm.
definitely need to dedicate a whole session with you and your story because Maurice has an incredible story and background, like you mentioned earlier, but there's so much that he can share with us. Thanks for sharing that, Maurice.
That's
Can
okay.
we hear from Rana? Because Rana, hi Rana, long time. Rana is, if I if I'm correct, she's based out of Dubai. So some insights from Dubai would be very insightful.
I think just quickly to answer the question of whether we, I don't know, understand how we understand the world or whether it's infinite or not. I think just a lot of the problems we see in politics and the misuse of religion and beliefs and so on is just being so dogmatic, and so everyone is just so attached to their idea and wanting to impose their idea or misuse in the Middle East, I would say, of religion. But what I just want to say, it's almost perfectly safe. I mean, just we're just working from home. It looks much worse on the news. So that's, I don't want to take up much time, but it's perfectly safe. It's just my company has told us to just stay home to avoid, like, you know, extra unnecessary logistics. But other than that, it's very safe. I feel people are really overreacting compared, probably again just based on their own experience, but our fellow probably citizens in Lebanon, for example, it is like very serious. They are getting, you know, like,
Mm.
yeah, they are getting serious, you know, bombings and things happening in Beirut and south of Lebanon. In Kuwait, the people I work with, there were, you know, kind of yeah, things happening like in the middle of the city. So in the UAE, it's not, nothing has affected really anyone in the city itself, I would say. The neighboring countries are, I think, suffering a little bit more.
Mm.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
I
mhm.
think it's just an interesting perspective that I heard from someone today, is that perhaps, I guess, Iran is sending these drones and missiles to kind of push the GCC countries to maybe join them in kind of pressuring the US basically to stop kind of trying to attack Iran. But anyways, I don't want to divert the session to that. But it's interesting that the GCC, I think, is brought into the conflict for the first time.
Mm.
But there isn't any like major safety issue on I think a daily basis like they're showing in the news. So
Thank you, Rana. Thank you. Clay, please.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to pick up on what Gabrielle was talking about of between stimulus and response. I think that was Viktor Frankl and
Mhm.
Man's Search for Meaning. It boils down for me is what is mine to do? And for some of us, what is mine to do is not to be a problem to other people, to take care of
Mhm.
myself. For other people, they have we have a greater reach. And what is my reach? And am I doing what is mine to do? I can't solve the problems of the world, but I can do what's mine to do.
Yeah, and that's again the topic that we are discussing is building resilience in a time of crisis, which I try to ground ourselves in the reality of human conditions, like who we really are, where we are in space and time, without too much, sovereign structures. How relative is every one of our fear, worry, happiness, sadness, whatever, and then we connect to what exactly you're saying, which is okay, given this, this spinning relativity of everything, then what do we want to do? Which is usually for, good people, is we want to use ourselves, our understanding, our sphere of influence, sphere of concerns, two interesting concepts, to affect the reality around us in a good way. Now, very quickly, I want to go through this just to give an example, and then we can have the next discussion. Stephen Hawking said once that intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, right? And everything is changing, everything is always moving. And I just give a very short example of different crises, if we can call them such, in my life, and how we moved. Like there were lack of opportunities in the south of Italy. I moved to study in the north of Italy. I studied something that was very fluffy, I call it international relations, ending up learning Chinese, Eurozone crisis, there were no jobs in Italy when I went out of university. I moved to the UK. Sorry. Brexit, COVID created some sort of crisis because, I created my own stability in the UK, decided to go back in the south of Italy. And now we are experiencing, at least here in Europe, this shift of power from the west to the east. And I see the opportunity as the local global thinking. So some of you that have not spoken, I would like to hear from you what crises have helped you grow in your life. Like because it's always worrying about when you think about a crisis, you might be worried. But then when you look back, moments that have made you grow, moments that have you made into who you are those moments of crisis. Because if there is nothing that happens, we just stagnate and nothing moves. So please,
Does
who
it have
wants
to
to go?
be economic and social crisis, or can it be like a personal crisis?
Any
In
crisis.
general.
Any crisis is good.
I would like to share.
I can share.
Please.
Okay, so for me, I immigrated to France 14 years ago because we went through a very, very heavy financial crisis. And it all started with 2010. My parents had a business. We worked a lot with Spain, and Spain just closed its doors, and they weren't giving any work out to Portuguese firms. And so also my father was, well, he had his reasons to lead the business he did the way he did. But I mean, that was one of the reasons that I ended up in France with 3 teenage children and having to start from scratch everything, not knowing the language. So when I look back and I think I need to move, it really does not bother me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's exactly the mindset. Someone else. I think it's very interesting to to see how a crisis puts you in the condition to reevaluate things that normally you wouldn't. And then from that reevaluation, you can really jump from one side to the other side of life very fast in ways that you don't, you'd have not imagined. Yeah. Someone else?
Well, Linto, would you like to share a little bit? Because I know you navigate between two countries.
Yeah, hi. My name is Lindo. Maybe I'm new to some people here in this meeting. I'm basically a consultant in Dubai, UAE. And for me, about the question which asked now, before I was like working as a consultant in the HR role, both in India and Dubai. So I was in a comfort zone. And in recent years, like the technological change, the AI, and the way the work culture is changing, the opportunities are changing. That made me realize that there is no point in like always in the comfort zone. We need to have something of our own, and we have to build something of our own. That's what I realized in recent years, and that realization made me switch to my own business. And even though before I have this plan, I was not initiating, but this experience made me to take actions, and now it's all going well. So I think the recent technological changes and the global changes realize me for the importance of our own establishment or our own sources of income we need to build.
So what you're saying is diversifying sources of income and
Yes.
becoming independent in terms of your
Yeah,
job, not relying on an
interesting
employer.
things.
Okay, thank you.
Recently, I have saw the film "The Pursuit of Happiness." I know it's a very old film. So in that one, it is showing like getting a job, but I don't. It is very relevant in this era, because the job now is like very volatile thing. You can be hired, you can be fired in the next day. All about how we are building ourselves.
Right. Thank you. Munang?
Yeah, so I try to reflect about your question, and for me, it's very hard to find a defining crisis moment. So personally, economically, I didn't suffer personally from some crisis, but other than that, in world affair, I'm trying to look back, and I see just a series of crises, one after the other, without a stop. And yeah, and my conclusion, I would say, regarding this is each time when something happened, I realized that the world is much worse than I thought it was. So this is really a concept that doesn't change for me. And in terms of impact on my life, so I think, yeah, one of the things, especially on the last, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years, is to say, okay, which country I would like to live in. Which country I would like to live in, which will align with my ethical standards and extra. So this is something that always comes to my mind now. Yeah, and it's very hard to adapt and to find the place where I would like to be because of all what's happening.
And can you remind us that you are based in France?
In France, in Paris, yeah.
The best
Used to be in the
country in the
United
world.
States, yeah, and then since 2008, I am in Paris, yeah.
Okay. I was just saying the best country in the world, I'm sorry.
Well,
Of course it is. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Right. So I think all the feedback was very, was extremely interesting. From crisis that, change people, location, to the idea of having to diversify income. Because, as Linto was saying, everybody is replaceable. So the only thing that cannot be replaced is the systems that you create that generate some income and the expenditure structures that you got around your life. There was someone that say that the richest man in the world is the person that can stop working and still survive, right? That's the reality. And what does that mean? It means that if you design a low-cost lifestyle that suits you and that you like, and you've got some sort of income that comes regularly, then that is not dependent from an active work, then you're already very rich because you can not work and you've got all the time. Now, let's look at the coming changes and opportunities. I identified some interesting changes. One is the multipolar world. So everything that is happening geopolitically, that's my field of expertise. It's for a very, very, very simple reason. It's because the power is shifting from the West, so from Europe and Northern America, and some satellite areas like Japan, Australia, New Zealand, to the rest of the world. And the West is resisting this trend. That's all there is to it. Everything else that everybody will say about ideologies or this or that, it's all structure. The real change that is happening now is a shift of power because of demographics, raw material, energy, and all of that. What does that mean for us, both in the West and in the East, everywhere where we are? It means that with this disruption, there is going to be space for new businesses, even in established areas. It could be that perhaps, I work in the instrumentation sector, and there were some big US companies that monopolized the markets. And now this is breaking down, and some smaller suppliers of instrumentation, local suppliers or regional suppliers, are getting their space. So you can look at this with fear, saying, "Ooh, the world is changing," or with an opportunity. "Ooh, I can get some market share from some established companies because I'm local." Okay. Nature in distress, right? Nature in distress. We all know that nature has got massive problems, above all because of toxicity more than climate change, because the amount of toxic chemicals which we are putting in the water, for example, in the soil, in the oceans, in the earth, in the air, is massive. But this can be a catalyst. It can unite people around a cause. Like, everybody should agree that the cause of many issues is the economical model which we have got. The economical model which is based on continuous expansion, which capitalism, which then leads to once you've completed to capitalize, to get all your resources in your country, then you're forced by the model to expand and go into other countries and take other resources. So this model is not sustainable. The nature in distress should be the wake-up call for everybody to think, okay, how can we unite people of different ages, of different countries, of different religions around this common goal of preserving nature, new technology, but also new societal organization. Global local tension. And this is very interesting, I think. When I say global local tension, I mean that there will be certain tendencies to centralize power and to impose standardized models that work at scale on everybody and on everything. Okay. But then the local element wants to resist this, because local people have a need for identity, for roots, for belonging. So the opportunity is to integrate these two things and create something that is not parochial, is not very close-minded, but is projected on the world, but knowing the local basis. Polarization, all this massive polarization that there is everywhere in the world of thoughts, of ideas, of power. Well, rational thinking is the solution to that. So while there has been a period where irrational thinking was seen as creative or something good. Now we are going back to a period where people are looking for certitudes, where people are looking for standards, where people are looking for some sort of direction. And that means that those of us who can provide rational explanation, rational ideas, understandable explanations can have a role. And then also with AI, 3D printing, and the technology in general, imagine if 30 years ago we have had the technology that we've got now. We can look at the technology as something to be afraid of, or we can look at it as a massive opportunity, which it is. AI, 3D printing. We can 3D print elements to put in machinery. You can make small gadgets yourself. You could open a production line just by having a 3D printing, a design, and some files that you send over for printing. So we need to always look at the changes and the opportunities. And let me go to the next one. And going to the practical bit, how do we build resilience in this time of crisis, right? So again, some specific challenges. There are hundreds, there are thousands of challenges. So we've established the mindset, we've established the ideas that each one of us has, and they are all different. Every person has got their own ideas, their own life philosophies. The challenges, however, are the same, and the way to build resilience is the same. For example, a very simple example, companies are now, some companies are now stuck with the legacy systems. So you get these massive companies that have to pay loads of money to Microsoft or Office or this or that, and they become big, bloated, expensive, ineffective, and their business model doesn't work anymore. And what are some companies doing? Above all, some small, medium companies, which tend to be more innovative. Well, they're using open source systems. They're using free systems. They're using things that are more agile in the way you can deploy them. And by doing that, they're cutting costs. And by cutting costs, because they're not paying, Microsoft, Google, Alphabet, all these companies, they're getting an edge on their competitors. They can be more and more competitive. Economical crisis, and I think this is the big one. For each one of us, this is, an interesting one. Economical crisis or geopolitical crisis. We can look at alternative life choices. It's each one of us, we fall in routines. We fall in certain routines. So we find a situation, we find a balance, and then we tend to be stuck in a routine. And that routine is useful because it creates consistency and the structure. But if you prolong it for too long, that routine will kill the ability to evolve. So, and then it's worth looking, as Linto was saying, looking at alternatives, and the best time is for an economic crisis. Again, AI automation, you focus on what matters, which I think it's personal touch, lived experience, and complex problem solving that, I see that by my discussions with the DeepSeek, and ChatGPT and Gemini, if I were to follow their advices, I would be bankrupt today. So don't trust those systems with with ideas, because they've got some mechanisms thereby they don't tend to contradict you. Multipolar world, what does it mean? It means that many companies are friend shoring, it's called the term. They're trying to bring production back to the local area, which means that if before you were competing with global players, now you can just because you are in the local area, you're in your own country, so you're not going to be subject to tariffs, for example. It just means that you've got an advantage, because whoever is making business with you, be it buying instrumentation, valves, pumps, or buying services, is not going to have any unexpected surprise. And again, Finance, you can go to the local banks, local shops, local alternatives, and that creates a very nice network of people that will help you out. Just very, very simply, by the virtue, I got a quotation from a standard company in my town for a house refurbishment, and the quotation came out at 45,000 euros. And then by talking with different people in the local area and by asking people and shopkeepers I go and pay, discuss with, I've been able to assemble a quotation from different, people for 25,000 euros. And that's because I've not gone with the idea, let's give everything to the big company. And I've had all the relationships locally with the different people. And all these things build resilience because that's, 20,000 euros less that I have to earn, actually more when you include taxation. So what I want you to discuss and some thoughts for you is how can you position yourself? What should you be doing now, today, with all the changes that are happening in the world, this shift from the West to the East, this multipolar world, this AI automation, all these things, how can you position yourself or how can you start to position yourself today so that in the next 6 to 12 months, you're not, submerged by this massive wave, but you're actually riding the wave and benefiting from it? Who wants to go?
Yeah, I don't mind going.
Yeah.
Yeah, the way
Please.
I position myself away from the world is with my knowledge and my wisdom, which I gained on the journey and continue gaining from people like yourself, being around like-minded people and your circle. Instead of being around toxic people, be around people that will lift you up, that has great understanding with their self and what which is going on in the world. Because what's going on in the world, that's going to happen with or without you. So you need to think about you, the real you inside of you. You need to empower yourself so that you get the power that God has given you to empower others with your knowledge and wisdom. Like Bruce Lee said, knowledge will give you power. Character will give you respect by knowing who you are. Do you know who you are? Because that's where the power comes, the confidence comes, the belief comes.
Mhm.
And it's not seeing is believing, it's believing. Then you'll see everything clearly, clarity, vision. And yeah, that's from my perspective. Thank you for listening.
Nice. Thank you, Morris. Someone else, what are you going to do in the next 6 to 12 months to position yourself so that when the change happens, or as the change continues to happen, you're not in a situation of stress, fear, anxiety, but you're actually benefiting from these big shifts that are happening and perhaps even trying to influence them?
If I may, if you want to.
Yeah,
Oh,
please.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Following what you have said now and before, Gabriele, is one thing you say is something that is permanent and you don't have to work, etc. Is you are already rich. I think this is a good point. But for the 6 to 12 months, for me, one thing is to look more at the local opportunities because of I mean what's happening in the world overall is it's kind of we don't have any certainty of what's going on, etc. So looking at local opportunities definitely has a lot of may have a lot of advantages, and this is for one thing. And the other thing that was interesting that you said also is to lower down the expenses of to go more for free open source tools, etc.
Yeah.
Instead of just keep increasing your costs, etc., etc. So I think these, for me, these are two things that are immediate that you can go and you can do.
And this point, I've got a very I've got some very interesting examples. Like my brother just got a house in the countryside in the south of Italy, where we live. He decided not to buy in the city, not to buy in the village, but in the countryside. He's getting solar panels installed, and we ran the numbers, and the payoff time, is very, very fast. He's going to produce part of his own food. He's going to benefit in health. The
Wow.
house was, quite cheap compared with what he's got. And all that came from a choice. He decided, I leave Amsterdam, I leave Utrecht, I leave this glittering city, and you know what? I'm going to get a 1.5 hectares of olive groves and the old stone house in the south of Italy, working remotely and trying to lower his bills to the minimum, which means that, when his friend came over, they gave him some tables and furnitures and things, which perhaps the previous generation would have seen as, oh, you're using old furniture. And it doesn't need
How old is your brother, by the way? Just to mention to everyone.
33.
Okay, millennial.
Yeah. Yes. So it's this kind of choices, that can make a difference. Again, if you're living in a big city, you might reconsider some compromise and say, okay, I can go to somewhere smaller, sell what I've got in the big city, or rent it out, and downsize my cost structure. And I can try to focus on learning skills or on having customers in such a way that I can be fully remotely based. So it's this kind of way of thinking to create differentiation of income, lowering the cost, doing some smart engineering with cost and things like that.
So
Joanna,
going
sorry.
the unconventional way, right? Like the opposite of what we've been taught.
It's like not contrarian investors, it's contrarian living.
And then Joanna.
Yeah.
Okay, so I wanted to say that because I already am in the process of doing or creating the change, I left the corporate world in September 2024 because I worked in a corporation, and the reason I left was that I realized whom I'm working for, the corporate system. What is the influence of corporations on the world? So, seeing those genocides where, for example, Microsoft and Google are literally involved and accused, and we have a report from Francesca Albanese where she listed about 60 corporations involved directly in the genocide. How can I work for them? So it's not about only the logic thinking and rational thinking. I'm a human being and I have a soul. So by being an employee for those corporations, I'm enabling them. They cannot continue in what they are doing without us, the employees. And saying, what can I do? Oh, this is my work, this is my living. We will stay this way to the infinite times. So this is number one. So it's not only about consumption, it's about whom I'm working for, whom I'm enabling. And I started my own business. Number two, I'm trying to talk about these things. So because we have people who really don't know, it's the propaganda of the corporate media is severe. So we have, if we start thinking rationally, we still sometimes struggle because the basic understanding, the basic thought, the basic belief is already programmed according to the corporate media. So we need to be human. We need to feel. We need to, when people lived in the past in small villages, everyone cared about each other. And today we say, okay, it's far away. There is a war there, or there is a genocide there. We can't influence it. That's not correct. If I'm working for a company that is involved, I'm affecting it. If I'm purchasing a product from a corporate that is involved in child labor, or they are not paying the ladies who are creating those clothes, I'm involved. So I'm not living now in the village or in the city or in the country that I'm living in. I'm living in the whole world. By every action that I do, by every word that I'm sharing. Oh, this is a terrorist. What the
I
word?
think your message is sexy when it comes to like fast fashion because of like child labor and the environment. But when it comes to other issues, it may not be that marketable because of the low sense of awareness that people have that everything is interconnected, and that we're all one. Sorry, Hanan, I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna head it to Joanna and then Erika.
Well, first of all, I'm in agreement with what Gabriele said about, like changing house lifestyle, and same with what Hanan is saying, how we're supporting by our actions or sometimes lack of. But the reality is in order to be able to react in the next 6 to 12 months, we need agility. And it comes with our own mind first. So it's not always action. Action is amazing, but we have to create the terrain for our brain to accept all of that. And personally, what I've been doing already for quite a while, and I'm still in process, is let go. It seems very simple, but it's let go of the life we have, let go of the people that are not right in our lives, let go of ideas that we had that this is how life is going to be in our future. And if we are attached and holding on everything that we've known, we won't have the agility to adapt. So that's my perception of it.
And
Give
that's a very
the big.
good thing, Johanna, because like that sentence, intelligence is the ability to adapt to change, right? That is, letting go is adapting to that change. If I've had a mental scheme or something that's working for a while, doesn't mean that it's going to work forever, right? There was a point when the Soviet Union was existing, and then overnight it wasn't existing anymore. The Romans had the Roman Empire, and then there wasn't that anymore. The same went for the British. The same went in many other places, histories, times. So just understanding that everything flows, everything is continuous movement, and we have to adapt, but also try to influence, the world for the better, as Martin was saying, right? Morris, sorry, is what matters, and we start from within. We create our own sphere of influence, and then we affect the world in the way we can for the best. And sorry, Erika. Yeah.
Yeah, when you asked about what crisis, I just realized because I couldn't think of any life crisis that now in retrospect, looking back, I'm saying, oh, it made me so much better. But I realized that I was like somehow always anticipating this crisis and I was moving forward all the time. So now when you are talking about these things, I did this last year. So I downsized, I sold my apartment, I paid back all my loans, I closed all my bank accounts, I diversified my business. Yeah, I reconnected with friends, family, spending more time in the countryside with my mother instead of being here. I live in Budapest. It's right in the city center. And actually, I'm thinking of like a real countryside. Like I find the northern Italy more and more attractive, to just buy a small house in the mountains and have the garden. And as you mentioned, so I've been doing this for the past 5 to 6 years, getting out of corporate, doing my own business, going back to school, diversifying my knowledge and all the business areas that I'm in, renovating my own house, I could have afforded to pay other people, but why if now I have the time? So, all these small things come, I think, with doing, because once you start realizing the benefit of it, just to get out of the city for a month maybe and go to visit your friends in the countryside, you will be aware of how much money you save just by not being in a city or just by having access to local farmed foods.
Well, imagine when you barter. When you barter, you're saving 20% of VAT on every transaction.
Yes, yes.
You don't pay VAT. It's 20% less money, right? And when you buy something cheaper, you are saving money because you're not paying taxes on the earned income that otherwise gets taxed and gets sucked up by these, state systems or corporate systems. So downsizing, but also looking at technology as an ally. I think it's important not to go too much in the direction of thinking technology is the enemy. Technology is our ally, is our tool, is going to help us. We just need to make it our own. That's why I think open source systems and all those community-based solutions are good, because it's not about going back but going forward and in a better way, and realizing that there was a very interesting book. It was called The Revolution in a Straw of Hay or something like that, and it was written by a Japanese guy who was living in the 1920s, 1930s, and he was looking how rural Japan was being changed by this corporate agriculture. And he was saying, well, with this corporate agriculture, you are just destroying all the nature, you're making the soil less and less fertile. Instead, I do my own system that doesn't require external inputs. So you don't need to cut the grass and then destroy all the microbiome and then buy the fertilizer to give the plant the nitrogen, the potassium, that they need. So realizing that smaller systems are also, in general, more energy efficient. They're much more energy efficient. So in the long term, this system will outlast these big systems where there is just so much waste. And if there isn't any other question or any other thoughts, I wanted to share a little bit of my, sales and business masterclass in 4 points. Who knows what SW stands for?
I thought it was a typo when you sent the slides, but then I was like, no, he can't do that.
Okay. So first of all, obviously, as we are going into this period of crisis, right? Because above all, if this conflict between Iran and the US continues, there's going to be a lot of oil prices are going to go up, which means that the energy prices are going to go up, which means that everything will go up. Okay, so we are everybody's going to get poorer, without considering all the human costs and the geopolitical cost and the chaos that these operation that Trump and Israel has started are going to create. So we as business people, we need to be aware of this first sentence. As a salesperson, one of the first things you learn is that some people will buy, some people will not buy. So what? So who is next? And that's a way to say you have to be persistent. You cannot be knocked down when people say no or when people don't answer. We will have to basically have this mindset of a numbers game. We have to contact as many people as possible in the more appropriate way, in clever ways. It can be via, the expertise platform, or, via LinkedIn, or via WhatsApp, or via going to conferences and meetings and places where our customers are, forums where our customers are. So the first thing is just to remember that it's a numbers game, first and foremost, when you talk about sales. And all of us who have got a business or work for a company or are trying to sell our services. We are all in this game. There is no going around. The more people you contact in the good way, I'm not just talking about spamming emails and things like that. I'm just talking about proper contacts, proper calls, proper discussions. The more customers you get, the more money you can earn, the more stable you can be. The second thing to remember is that you cannot win an argument. It's just impossible. Like very, very few people will turn around in the middle of a discussion and say, oh, yes, sorry, I'm wrong, you are right. I do that sometimes, but very few people will do that. So don't get in argument with customers, with people. It's just a waste of time, above all when we are talking about the business, right? So you need to always leave people a way to save face. If someone says something wrong, you can say things like yes and explain what the other person misunderstood, but don't ever get into an argument, which does not mean that you need to be manipulative in a bad way, but you have to be conscious of how you approach, how you communicate, how you talk with people. The third one, and I think this is important, and it connects with the theme of building resilience, is everything you ever wanted is sitting on the other side of fear. So if you really think about it, the life that you want or the things that you might want during a crisis is on the other side of fear. Because if you weren't scared of doing that, the steps that are required to get that order or get that business or open that connection, you would have already done it. Okay. And finally, all of these can seem, motivational, okay, yeah, go on, contact as many people as possible, be fearless, and don't go into arguments. That's already a good way to go, in life. But the fourth point is important. We cannot just be fearless and mindless. We need to think about things in economic terms. And when you look at the economics, the definition is the study of allocation of scarce resources. For some people, the scarce resource is going to be time. So our time is finite. So how are we allocating our time? Are we spending time setting up an automated AI system that sends email, but we will never set it up because it's too complicated and we don't want to pay the person that wants to do that? Or we're going to a conference and meeting 10 people and closing 3 deals? Are we putting our money in assets that are producing enough returns? Are we doing that? Not what we like, not what we would like to work, but are we taking the rational and moral choices? I'm not saying to invest in Lockheed Martin. So what we need to think about going into this crisis is we want to play the numbers game. We want to avoid arguments, which basically means avoiding any waste of time. We want to be conscious of the fact that we still have, each one of us has got some fears. And the fear is not, oh, I'm scared, but it could be a sense in, a feeling of, oh, I cannot talk with that customer. They are too big and corporate. Why would they consider me as a small business? Or, oh, I go to talk with that politician or that regulator. They're not going to discuss with me. Or I'm going to do a deal with this, with this institution, isn't going to bite me back. And finally, be smart. Like, we really need to look at the hard numbers sometimes. We need to look at what is working and how we're using our money, our resources, our time, our social capital. And by putting all this together, I think, and remembering that everything is sort of relative, we are really very small in the universe, there is nothing to worry about. then this poly crisis can become a massive opportunity for improvement, change, and progress. I wanted to know, do you have any comments of this? Any thoughts? Anybody wants to share some?
Yeah, Gabrielle, I think practically we discussed this many, many times, you and I. It starts with like, for example, supporting a very small enterprise rather than
Yeah.
going for a big corp company. Like yesterday, I was talking to this guy, he's developing SaaS and he does it customized to each of his clients. I was like, why not just buy the thing from Notion? And he's like, no, but that's different. So again, like our consumption choices have such a huge impact if you choose, like you vote with your dollars or your euros. So whenever you pay something, you support it in a way. So maybe just becoming more aware and conscious of where are we putting our dollars in. That could be like a one step to like helping one another in this crisis and building resilience as a collective community. Because again, let's remember that's only like a very tiny minority is taking advantage of the crisis, and that's the billionaires, and the rest of us will just take whatever is left.
And what you said is very important. Give each other's references. I think that is very important, above all in a community like expertise. Take some time. There was a small business association in the UK where I was part when I had my web design company 10 years ago. And there was this place where we would meet once every month, do a stand up, and bring leads to the other people. So the plumber was giving leads to the electrician. I was giving lead to the builder. The farmer was giving leads to me for someone who wanted the website done. So having this kind of mindset also within expertise, I think could be very useful, because if we come across someone who wants a service, I cannot just be aware of what I need, but I need to be aware of what other people need, so that we sort of create this lead generation, funnel to get more and more customers within this system.
It could be also like when you go shopping for clothes, for example, rather than going to like a big chain, where you get very impersonal sort of relationship with the seller and the cashier, you can go to like a small company or a small shop or like a small owner to have that transaction with. And when you're doing that, you're also supporting other businesses. So yeah, let's hear from you guys. Joanna, do you want to go?
Sure. I have to say, I understand what Gabriele is communicating. I started my career in sales, cold calling, leads, and had to go over rejection. And it is what I think he's trying to convey. It's all about fear. We all carry fear, and it all blocks us in making changes in our lives. So, it doesn't have to be just linked to business and sales, but it's fear in every area of our lives, which is why I was saying let go. It's letting go is part of working on your own fear about losing, the plan that you had for your future, or the house you thought you were going to live in, or maybe, the people you are going to be with, and find the right people that are ready to create smaller communities like we just discussed, and act towards the change.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Gabriel. In life, you have to be fearless for your life to become limitless. I have no fear. And like they say, fear is a word proclaiming to be real, false evidence appearing to be real, because it is really and truly, because we've all faced fear, but we've all overcame it at some point in our life and thought to ourselves, what was I fearful about? And everything's all right. So we have to build up that habit we live in a habitual world where habits are formed and habits become us. So if we get rid of the habits, it changes you. So what habits have you got? You've got to look at every aspect of yourself. And like I always like to say, take time out to find out about yourself, get to know yourself within. And like I said, then give outside of yourself once you love yourself, because that's where the confidence comes, in believing and loving yourself. Like I always say on stage, if I was a cake, I would eat myself. I love myself so much. Thank you.
Amazing. I'll remember that one. Thanks, Morris. Clay, please.
Well, I think it's taking, for me, it's taking something that goes into this market and translating it into another market. And by that, I mean, working with people, I help them find their inner wisdom, find their meaning and their direction in life. The same methodology can be handled, it can be applied operationally into organizations. And it's the same work. The same methodology that I use with individuals applies into corporations. I've known this for years, but now I'm moved to take that step, reposition it, and make it more secular and applicable into the business environment. And that's a big leap, but it's the same process in two different markets, defined differently, but it's underlying, it's the same. So if we can find applicable markets, I think that's good in these times of chaos. And when has there not been a time of chaos? Thanks.
Exactly. I think your last sentence, when has not been the kind of time of chaos, connects also with what Munim was saying, which is like, oh, we're seeing the world is getting worse and worse. Well, it's not. If we read every writer in every age, they've always said the world is going, to end, and this is a disaster, and people are losing, morality, values, this and that. In reality, that's just the process of growing up and realizing the nature of reality, which is not bad or good, it's just what it is. And then it depends on us, on how we take it, how we shape it, and what we do with it.
So, Gabriele, if I may, I'm going to challenge you a little bit because reading Matt's comment earlier that he's going to be spending his time improving his house, doing like house refurbishments and so on. And I remember you telling me not to spend huge amounts of money in the next 6 months. So, can you share a little bit about why you said so and if we should all be doing the same and why?
Oh that's a very good point. It goes back to my house renovation story. So, obviously, in the next 6 months, and this was we had this discussion 3 weeks ago, I think, right?
Yeah, totally.
I think I
Before
called
the
you three
start
weeks
of the
ago
year.
and said, don't spend any money. Just keep the money with you, because times are going to be tight. There's just going to be an energy crisis, and the cost of everything is going to go up. So it's just again, economics, the allocation of scarce resources. So from my side, what I'm trying to do is I'm moving from going for a full refurbishment, which was very, very expensive, to getting a company to do that, to talking with the local seller of fruits and vegetables in this small village and saying, do you know an electrician? And him saying, yes, I got it. He's my best mate. And finding out that this guy can do a better price. And basically getting the same result eventually with the same amount of money, but I've still not committed to anything. I'm still in the evaluation phase. And I think that's important for all of us. We need to be very conscious, above all, about big expenditures, big purchases in this moment. because things are going to be unstable. I mean, my job, my job, that what I do day to day in different forms is selling instrumentation to the industrial markets and to water companies. And many of these people take decisions based on the money that the finance departments tell them that they're going to have in 6 months, 12 months, 15 months, So what happens, what tends to happen is that when we start to see less projects, and this has been the case in the last month or two, it's because the money people are already projecting that in 6 months' time, the budget is not going to be there. And the reason is simple. In Europe, at least, in the US, but also in China, governments are ramping up spending for the military. In Europe, it's going from 2% to 5% of the GDP, which is a huge chunk of money going to the military industrial complex, and that percentage of money is a lot for the economy. So each one of us, unless you work in the military industrial complex, is going to be affected one way or the other. So we need to be very proactive in looking for customers, but we also need to be aware of the geopolitical situation, try to do our best we can, to survive ourselves and also to improve the situation. But also we cannot be blind. We cannot just put our hand in the sand and pretend nothing is happening,
Definitely. Anyway, Gabriele, I think this conversation is to be continued because we have come to the end of today's session. Thank you so much, Gabriele, for your insights and your perspectives on things. I think there are some very good tips that we can definitely implement. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's session. Very unconventional networking session. Let me know your thoughts. You can send me a message or email me as you want. Richard, we have these every Wednesday, so you're welcome to join anytime. We use the same link. Thank you again, everyone. Union, it was good to see you. Maybe see you on Tuesday in Paris. Meet up. Yeah, in Paris as well. Monaim, if you can, that would be lovely. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Gabriele. Have a nice one. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, Gabriele. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye,
sir.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.